So our next topic falls in the category, from my point of view, is if you can't eliminate it, automate it. There's a lot of things that have to be done on projects like estimating, and there's just got to be a better way to do it than we historically have done it. This is a big step towards, what you're going to hear about is a big step towards industrializing construction using robotic process automation for estimating. We have two speakers for this. Solomon Al Abdul Karim, who's with an estimating engineer with Saudi Aramco. He's an experienced PMO professional in the oil and gas industry. He has previous experience in all project life cycles, part of the project management team within Saudi Aramco. Solomon has a keen interest in the latest trends within the industry and innovation and digital innovation. So we're glad you're connected up with us. Jose Garcia is an experienced cost estimator with over 35 years in the oil and gas industry, developing conceptual, definitive estimates, mainly for EPC projects. He's been working with Saudi Aramco as an estimating specialist for the last 15 years and previous experience with PDVSA in Venezuela. So please share, I got your presentation shared there. I'll turn it over to you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Gary. I am Sulaiman Abdul Karim, and I'm very excited to share with you my technical paper on RPA estimating for AR releases. I hope you will find this presentation interesting and informative. I would like to thank PPI for organizing this wonderful event and thank the audience for attending this virtual event. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the contribution of my co-author, Jose Garcia, and I would like to thank my management and colleagues for their support. In this presentation, I'll go over an introduction of the paper, the definition of RPA technology, the case study, conclusion, then we will open the floor for any Q&As. In the oil and gas industry, estimating is a critical function that involves predicting the cost of a project accurately for planning and funding purposes. The purpose of estimating is complex and requires a significant amount of time and effort, as it involves analyzing different variables such as labor, materials, equipment, and other project-related contributors. Occasionally, estimating engineers are required to produce multiple types of estimates that are often repetitive and high in volume. The manual nature of estimating a process makes it prone to errors, which can lead to inaccurate cost prediction, project delays, and increased costs. To overcome these challenges, companies have been exploring the use of RPA technology to automate repetitive and rule-based tasks that are associated with the estimating process. RPA is a technology that allows companies to automate repetitive tasks by using software robots that mimic human actions. These software robots can automate various tasks such as data entry, report generation, and other administrative work. Within Saudi Aramco estimating services, one type of estimate that is commonly requested is the onshore maintain potential expenditure request release estimates. This is a time-sensitive expenditure request estimate that is developed by the proponent organizations and submitted to the estimating organization for review, validate, and endorsement. These types of estimates are similar, repetitive, and high in volume. The workflow for developing and submitting these estimates is a multi-step process that involves several stakeholders. The proponent organization first develops the estimate and submits the estimate to the estimating unit head, who assigns the request to an estimating engineer. The estimating engineer assigns these estimate requests to individuals, then review the estimate and provide their endorsement. Data used in the estimation process is mostly derived from long-term agreements and some internal references. Once the estimate has been endorsed by the estimating engineer, it is submitted for approval by estimating and proponent management. Upon completion of the estimate, the estimating engineer compiles the estimate files per quality assurance and quality control, QA/QC, guidelines to maintain a record. This ensures that the estimate is accurate, reliable, and can be easily retrieved in the future if needed. The maintain potential expenditure request releases are critical in oil and gas. Failure to submit these estimates in timely manner can result directly in project delays. I'll leave it here for Josue to provide us a background about the RPA technology. Go ahead, Josue.
Greetings, everyone. So, talking about the RPA or Robotic Process Automation. Before jumping to the case study, let's have a brief understanding about the RPA technology. So this technology is going to mimic the human interaction, like logging into applications and systems, moving files and folders, extracting, copying, and inserting data, filling in forms, and completing routine analysis and reports. So if we have this software technology, instead of having as a software, instead of the people doing this work as a human estimator. So the idea, as indicated previously by Suleiman, is to do this repetitive and lower value work. Something like we are explaining, logging into application systems, moving some files and folders, extracting information from some of the documents submitted for revision and validation, etc. So the idea is to, as well, to produce some information using the RPA and completing this routine analysis and report. So the RPA as a process has a lot of applications across various industries in general. Some of these, for example, talking about the healthcare, in those cases, can help with various levels of patient care. For example, in banking as well, the RPA can help doing this multiple repetitive tasks that prioritize data accuracy. In the HR as well, the RPAs can help, for example, onboarding and payroll processing. Finance RPAs are helping with tasks such as account reconciliation, financial statement generation, etc. So right now, worldwide, the robotic process automation, the RPA, has been used a lot in all type of industries. But then, generally speaking, usually the RPA can be linked with artificial intelligence, AI, in order to provide some artificial intelligence capabilities within the RPA process. However, it's very important to highlight that in this particular case, for the case study, the RPA was not linked with any artificial intelligence tool within this particular case. So Suleiman will continue explaining the case study. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josue. So this case study focuses on the deployment of the RPA technology on maintain potential ER release estimates, as I've mentioned. Those maintain potential projects' purpose is to sustain the crude oil and gas production from both onshore and offshore fields through constructing the wellhead tie-ins to the existing Saudi Aramco pipeline network. Onshore maintain potential is being funded through approved expenditure request, ER releases, where these are incremental funding mechanism, part of an approved yearly master appropriation plan for a well-defined scope of works which are routine and repetitive in nature. Saudi Aramco Estimating Services had identified this estimating process and found that these were time-consuming and prone to errors due to the repetitive nature of some of these tasks involved. To overcome these challenges, the company have decided to implement RPA technology to automate the estimating process for the pure well tie-in for onshore maintain potential ER releases, where these are the repetitive and high in volume within our organization. The RPA process involved the following steps during the implementation. First is the identification of the system, the identification of the tasks that are going to be automated. So when we've understood the RPA technology capability and applicabilities, teams scouted for tasks or estimates that are high in volume, repetitive, and rule-based, such as data entry, report generation, and other administrative work. We found that onshore maintain potential ER releases are the perfect fit for that technology. Then we have moved to the design and development of the RPA solution. The RPA solution was designed and developed by a team of RPA developers who worked closely with estimating engineers to understand the requirements of the estimating process for the mentioned types of estimates. The RPA solution was designed to automate the identified estimate requests and was integrated with the company's existing SAP interface for smoother processing, as described briefly in the figure. ER release cost estimates contain required costs for oil, gas, and water well tie-ins, which will be funded through final SAP output named ER Release 5060. Cost estimates are prepared by proponent, as I mentioned earlier, based on the following documents inputs. First is the company estimate request, CER document, survey document file in the form of Excel spreadsheet, and calculations for the material and construction related costs. Also, we've extracted some of the data from the Saudi Aramco material system, SAM's screenshots previously, and now the RPA is linked to that directly through a live system. Also, we've been provided by Excel spreadsheets containing the work unit rates that are being used in the estimates, part of the LTA contractual agreements. Estimating Services Division responsibility is to review, validate, and endorse funding ER Release 5060 based on above mentioned documents plus Excel interface sheet. During the testing and validation, the RPA solution was tested and validated to ensure that it met the requirements of the estimating process. The testing phase involved the use of test cases to ensure that the RPA solution was accurate and reliable. We have learned that the standardized submitted documents is the crucial for the RPA solution to perform well. So this is the key success factor within the RPA solution. Additionally, RPA should be monitored for any exceptions or changes in the business rules. After then, once the RPA solution was tested and validated, it was deployed in the estimating services where the estimating SMEs were trained to use the RPA solution. Upon implementing the RPA solution for these mentioned types of estimates, there were several benefits for Saudi Aramco, including, first, increased productivity. The RPA solution automated the repetitive and rule-based tasks, which allowed the estimating engineers to focus on more critical tasks, such as the validation and analysis. This resulted into increased productivity as the estimating engineers could produce more estimates faster and maintaining the high accuracy consistently. In addition, the RPA solution reduced the processing time of the targeted types of estimates by automating them. This resulted in faster turnaround times for the estimates, which improved the company's overall efficiency. By comparing year-by-year onshore maintain potential budget item, BI, estimate request completion durations, it was found that in the year of 2022, where the RPA was implemented, more requests are processed in addition to the reducing the average processing time for each request. In 2022, the RPA has processed more than 450 estimate requests, where this accounts for more than 20% of the total number of estimates issued by the estimating services organization. Right now, we have a 24/7 robot estimator available. the RPA solution provided 24/7 availability of the robot estimator, which allowed the company to produce more estimates around the clock. This was particularly beneficial for the company when we are working on projects with very tight deadlines. Right now, we are having a consistent high accuracy where the RPA solution maintained a sustainable, consistent high accuracy of the estimates by reducing the likelihood of errors that can occur during the manual entry process. This resulted into more accurate cost predictions, which reduced the risk of project delays and increased costs. Part of the RPA process is the exception, validation, and supervisor review and approval. Excluding the first batch of the RPA executed requests that are part of the piloting phase, performance of the processed requests is showing 100% processing rate, where all requests processed did not need to be changed by estimating SMEs. Despite the benefits, there were some challenges faced during the RPA implementation process. For instance, the scoping and design of the RPA solution was a bit of a challenging task. The solution involved more than 3,000 steps and validations, which required us to detail every single step and click that the RPA should replicate. This was necessary to ensure that the RPA could accurately process the targeted repetitive estimate requests. As a lessons learned to this, when AI tool is linked, this can help in minimizing the number of steps depending on AI targeted tasks within the overall process that the RPA will tackle, such as text comprehension. We haven't had the chance to apply AI due to security requirements within the company at that time. Another challenge that we have faced during the implementation process and the execution is the limitation and adaptability to changes on an existing system. Since the RPA is running on a structured process basis, any change on this will impact the process of the task executed by the RPA. This can be minimized in multiple ways, where in our case, part of the process, for instance, we've developed a dynamic repository that the RPA refer for some location name abbreviations. This is expandable and dynamic as needed to ensure continuity of all tasks in the future. Another example is the exception items that the RPA might encounter. These are being sent for estimating SMEs for their quick check and rectifications. If needed, then the RPA will take it from there. To recap on what we have presented, the RPA or this paper that represents the RPA solution presents a case study of RPA implementation within estimating services organization in Saudi Aramco, which led to increased productivity, reduced processing time, and 24/7 availability of the robot estimator. In 2022, RPA has processed more than 450 estimate requests, accounting for more than 20% of the total number of estimates issued by the organization. The RPA implementation process involved the identification of the estimate types to be automated, the design and development of the RPA solution, testing and validation, and deployment and training. Overall, the RPA implementation in Saudi Aramco estimating services for onshore maintain potential ER releases was a success, and the company is considering expanding the use of RPA technology to other areas of the business. RPA capabilities can be potentially expanded to process the annual capital program estimate updates during the front-end loading FEL stages. By this, we conclude our presentation, and we would be happy to take any question and answers that you might be having.
Good, thank you. Maybe you could stop sharing your slides for now so we can see your faces more clearly.
Sure.
We've got one good question came in here. It says, how do you cater for changes in contract rates or policy changes in this environment? So I'm assuming in the estimating routine, how does it know if something's going to change in terms of actual costs?
Well, I think this is a very good question. Josue might answer this, as we have done a similar exercise last couple of months where we had changes in the rates within the LTA. Go ahead, Josue, if you want to explain this, where we have changed the rates within the RPA.
Thank you, Suleiman. As mentioned previously, we are using LTA or long-term agreement contracts with a variation of some years, 3 to 5 years. And yes, in this particular case, recently, means early this year, we have an update for all the LTAs. Takes some time, yes, in order to update all of these steps required by the RPA, but definitely was smooth, and once implemented, tested, was something something like 2 weeks takes in order to update the whole information and to be re-implemented and working perfect.
Okay.
Just as a continuation to Josue's answer, we have built the solution in some of the Excel sheets that are built to be dynamic and expandable, as I mentioned, where these rates, we had a chance to expand these smoothly, where it did not took that much of time to adjust these rates.
Makes sense. Another good question. You mentioned that the formatting of the input documents is critical for the RPA. In practice, what fraction of the estimate requests are processed for the first time by the RPA, and what fraction requires some kind of document correction to be processed successfully?
Can you repeat that again, just to understand this very well?
Yeah, it says you mentioned that the formatting of the input documents is critical for the RPA.
Mm-hmm.
In practice, what fraction of estimate requests are processed first time by the RPA, and what fraction requires some kind of a document correction to be processed successfully? So were the documents accurate to begin with, or did you have to recycle to adjust the documents so that you got a good estimate?
Well, as I have mentioned, at the beginning, we have a lot of estimates that we are receiving during the piloting phase. We have a lot of estimates that we are receiving that we need to ask the proponent organization to go and readjust that number or that figure or the format or structure or the title just for the RPA to process. But after that, I think Josue might also give us a background about this, where we don't see that much of estimates that we need or it needs to be adjusted. Josue?
Yes, definitely. Initially, of course, it required a lot of meetings with all the organizations in order to establish a lot of formats, okay, implemented as a template, because definitely is an issue with the RPA. And yes, initially we faced some issues with this, but right now, due to all this organization that they prepare the whole information and they submit to us, they are following with all these templates. So I can say that right now it's 80–90% of the cost estimate assigned to the RPA does not require any further action from the SMEs. From time to time, because we are dealing with different people in other organizations, some minimal modification to one of these templates, how they input the information and so. But then the RPA immediately is going to detect this and send, as I showed previously, as an exception item to the SMEs. And the action is, I can say within minutes, we can do some correction, some modification, or simple approving the exception because there is no further action that is required, and we can move. So definitely is working perfect.
Yeah, that's excellent. Hey, one more quick question for you before we've got to move on. I can't help but reflect, you said you had to map all the steps in the process. There are like 3,000 steps. Did you realize there were and that's very similar to what we do in production mapping. You know, there's map of it, all the workflows and all the steps it takes to get the work done. Did it surprise you there were 3,000 steps?
I would say yes, because it was a bit tedious to do that. So the team had to not only realizing that we have all of these steps, but explaining these steps, documenting these and explaining them in the scoping document for the team who's going to execute the RPA coding or programming. So this is the tedious part where you have to translate whatever these steps on paper and these to be reflected where the RPA should replicate in each estimate request.
So when you saw those steps, did you say, we need to eliminate some of those, or were you able to optimize your approach a little bit?
It might be. This is an area of where we need to look into.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, I didn't even know RPA existed until you submitted your paper, and I think it's very insightful and holds a lot of promise on, you know, eliminating routine things and allow people to focus on more important things like you're hearing about today in the technical conference. So thank you very much for your time and effort to write the paper and prepare the presentation. It's very much appreciated.